Good evening, fellow heretics. Welcome to tonight's show. I'm your host, Captain Dapple, and you're watching Nerds and Heresy. My normal co-host, Natty Nat, may or may not join us later, but that's okay. I got three excellent guests waiting for us backstage. But before we bring them on, let's
hold on to your butts.
All right, everyone, please help me welcome Rachel Cain, probably better known as I Blame Bill from TikTok, Dr. Alexiana Fry, and Heathen Queen. Needs no introduction either. How y'all doing tonight?
Fantastic.
Hanging in there.
Yeah.
Do y'all want to take a minute and introduce yourself real quick before we get into the fun stuff?
Let's do it.
No introductions? The links.
I don't know. I was waiting for someone to go. I don't know. I thought you were going to.
Bill, you have not been, or Rachel, you haven't been on my show before, have you?
I know. This is my first time. I feel like it's appropriate that I am popping my cherry at the same time that we're talking about how Christ penetrates the church.
God damn it.
Like
here we go.
Yes, I am Rachel, known as I Blame Bill on TikTok, and I make videos that make people tell me I'm going to hell. So
yes.
There you go.
Relatable.
Yeah, relatable is right.
Jess, how about you? What you got going on?
Well, I am HQ. I think probably most of your audience already knows me. I am on TikTok as well, also regularly being told that I'm going to go to hell. Just fine, because it sounds like a lot more fun anyway. And, also that I'm a communist, feminist, that men would definitely never sleep with. So that's what I'm doing on TikTok. And yeah.
Very good. Dr. Fry, welcome back.
Hi. Yes.
Like your third time.
I feel honored. And a little like, why do I have to keep coming on? Because shit keeps happening in the evangelical community. That's so gnarly. But hello, my name is Dr. Fry. I am a Jezebel spirit. I do like that my partner turned on the light just as I said Jezebel spirit. Like, yes, that is who I am. Yeah, really excited to chat. I have my PhD in Old Testament, so I can't wait to get into the roots of these things.
Yeah.
Of penetration.
Speaking of the
terrible argument.
Speaking of the
really?
I guess it's worth noting that I grew up evangelical, so this
same
creepy sexual language has been my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very, very, yeah.
And that speaks to why so many of us were like read this article and were just like red flags. Oh, nope, not fucking doing this anymore. No.
I mean, it was a very visceral response for me. Like very much like body shut down. Like not again. No.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It made me never want to have sex again, ever.
Trauma.
Like I was like, oh, I'm just celibate now. It's fine. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, we're good.
Before we go any further, for those who didn't know, the Gospel Coalition recently released an article, so we're talking about tonight. What is the Gospel Coalition? Do any of y'all know more about it than maybe I do? I know they do a bunch of blogging and shit,
from
but
someone who
follow them.
Used to write for Desiring God.
Make it stop.
You do? You did?
Uh-huh.
Oh no.
Yeah, it really unfortunately still comes up if you like type my name into Google.
I'm doing that right now. I'm kidding.
Yeah, do it. It comes right up. I never chatted about complementarianism in those spaces because but was a firm complementarian. So yes, the Gospel Coalition is a coalition of conservative right-wing evangelicals who have come together to preserve the gospel according to their ideologies.
Oh, that doesn't sound like evangelicals at all.
Sorry, Dr. Camp, you're going to find out.
Yeah. So if you don't know the article that we're talking about,
they tend to lean a little bit reformed, is what I've noticed. And they're very focused on apologetics.
They are.
A lot of apologists tend to lean a little bit reformed because it's more intellectually honest, is what I think. But yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. If you don't know what we're talking about, like, I'm really sorry for what you're about to find out.
Yeah, I'm also like, just don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
So, why are you doing this to me right now? Just a second. Here we go. Okay.
Here we go.
So this is
right in.
So quick backstory. They posted this article and it was not well received. And then they took it down and they were like, oh, it would make more sense in a broader context because it's just a section from the first chapter of the whole last book. So they were like, we'll share the whole chapter and that will be like, so when that was not met with crowds of people saying, oh yeah, we were wrong about that. Yeah. They took that down too and fired the guy.
So maybe we should, if you don't mind, start like just broadly telling folks what the article was about. Basically, this guy that wrote the article, that is a lot to look at. He wrote this article and it's an excerpt from his book.
There it is.
And he's basically
get in line, ladies.
I know, right? Equating the way Jesus or God interacts with the church to husbands and wives having sex. And like I am not kidding when like he said Christ penetrates the church.
Yeah, it's a literal.
And then it's that's the quote.
Yeah, I have that highlighted.
About, yeah. I think he refers to like Lady Bits as like an altar. And I mean, like, you can worship there if you want.
Yeah. He says,
but, like,
most holy place.
As Jesus leaves, like, it's just, it's so bad.
Horny of hornies, if you will. Christians are just like the horniest people on earth. It's very
weird. They really are.
Like,
they really are.
Sexuality is it comes in super inappropriate, gross ways.
Yeah, like, just go have sex. It's fine.
They're like, the culture is so obsessed with sex.
Yeah.
And then they post this.
Yeah, because you guys made it that way.
Yeah, none of us are writing creepy articles about like God and penises. Yeah. Like,
and to be clear, this is not. I mean, I think it's worth noting for anybody who's here who is not raised in fundamentalist evangelical spaces. This is really standard. I mean,
yes.
I haven't necessarily heard before this explicit of an explanation for it, but when God in the Bible, when God talks about his relationship with people, there's various analogies that are used, father and child, king, and like all of that is there. And husband wife is like, we're betrothed to Jesus, like that's a whole thing. But I don't know that we needed to take it to the marriage bed with Jesus.
No, yeah. I mean, if you grew up in purity culture, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, like I was literally told on multiple occasions, like, just like date Jesus. Like let Jesus be your boyfriend.
Jesus
what
is my boyfriend. Yeah.
In the hell is like, what is that? That's so bizarre. Anyway. No. Karma is my boyfriend.
Karma is my boyfriend.
One of the like lower key things that nobody really brought up on Twitter that I noticed is this use of Ephesians 5. When Paul quotes, for this reason a man will leave his father and mother. Because see, Jesus quotes this too in Matthew 19, but he quotes it, and he's quoting from Genesis 2. But Jesus quotes it in the context of divorce. The Pharisees come to him and say, hey, what do you think about divorce? And Jesus is like, yeah, I don't get divorced because this, he quotes this. But then Paul is using this whole thing as the analogy of, being married, the church being married to Christ. Jesus doesn't do that. Jesus never says that. Paul does. Like, so why is he picking Paul's use of this verse and not Jesus? That's pretty suspicious.
Because they were Paul.
Because Christians are obsessed with Paul. Paul is their boyfriend.
Christians love Paul. They're like, that Jesus guy, I guess he's cool, but Paul really is doing it for me.
Yeah.
And I will never understand. But yeah.
Well, Paul's the one who gives him the power, right?
This is very accurate.
That's it.
But also, like, the thing that, I mean, there was a lot of things that bothered me about this article. Don't get me wrong, pretty much every word, the fact that it exists. But the way in which it, like, and people have brought this up on Twitter, the way in which it unsurprisingly treats women, or like talks about women as like objects, and like basically the fullest expression of a husband's, I don't know, generosity or love is like basically that he can
sacrifice his seed,
like inside of her. And then like it's terrible take, it's terrible theology, but it reinforces and supports abuse narratives.
Oh yeah.
And like, this is not surprising because I grew up in the church and I saw it all the time, but like the fact that people are tying themselves into knots to like come up with ways to try and make it sound good or like it should be happening or right. Like, my guy, just learn how to be good in bed and be quiet about it. Like, it's fine. Just shh.
Because
anyway,
that's all this is. Like this like underlying tone of this is, you're absolutely right. I'm bad at this, but you should be grateful anyway.
Yeah. Honestly, it kind of feels a little bit like it's a really good analogy in that sense for how they treat Jesus, right? Like, you're supposed to love him. And we definitely have to remind you constantly that it's a duty, that this is a duty. Remember, you really have to be happy. It's a duty. Like, that tracks for how you treat Christianity and how you expect women to embrace it. Like that.
Well,
yeah. Okay.
Let me just read this section since we're on this portion. Let's start with this gospel bombshell. Earlier, he says, I've discovered a crucial corrective in the Bible. Really? You discovered this, motherfucker? Anyway, let's start with this gospel bombshell. Sex is an icon of salvation. How? I suggest the language of generosity and hospitality can help us out. Generosity and hospitality. He typed that twice, did he? Anyway, because I just copied and pasted that. Anyway.
I think it was
generosity and hospitality are both embodied in the sexual act. Think about it, you guys. Generosity involves giving extravagantly to some sex, to some sex. Why is this typed weird? Anyway, I should have read this better. You give the best you've got to give, lavishly pouring out your time, energy, or money to a deeper level. So the church wants you to make it rain at the strip club. You give the best you've got to give, lavishly pouring your time, energy, money. At a deeper level, generosity is giving of not just your resources, but your very self. And what deeper form of self-giving is there than sexual union, where particularly for the husband, he pours out his very presence, not only upon you, but within his wife, which is weird. I'm almost impressed. How do you do both? You got to pick one.
He also has poured out his presence on countless socks. So what is this? Like, sorry, why am I supposed to feel good about this?
The socks are very hospitable to your.
Just say you want to on her, because that's what that's saying. That's all that's saying. Upon and with it. Just say you like that. That's fine. I'm sure you can find a woman who's down with that, who likes it too. Quit writing dissertations about it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna kink shame you, but this you don't need to write a theological treatise for your kink.
It'll make it sound like you're doing her a favor.
Right. Rarely.
like you're the one who's this. Once again, I just feel like it fits in with their toxic view of God as well. I mean, how many times have we told like God really made it was a horror, it was the worst sacrifice, God. It was the biggest sacrifice ever. And meanwhile, so your orgasm is a sacrificial giving to the woman. Explain how that works to me.
This guy is just upset that he's not having sex as much as he wants, and so he's trying to make it like a divine mandate because his wife has gotten tired of like.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty standard for most men in evangelical marriages, because then they can use this and you obey, because why would you quench the spirit?
When you put this in the frame of, you know, what we're always told within complementarianism, right? Like we say, okay, so women are expected to obey their husbands. That's fucking sexist. And always the response back that we get is, but remember, don't take it out of context. Remember, men are also supposed to love their wives as Christ loves the church. So apparently, according to them, what that means is women have to obey and men get to have sex. And that is the equation here, for real. That's what loving your wife as Christ loves the church is orgasms. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Like cool. Growing up, I was always like told that, and I realized this is like part of like being programmed by the patriarchy on both ends, but like that men were like just obsessed with sex, right? And like I was like, okay, like that can't possibly be like true. And like as I grew up in the church and got older, holy fuck. You know, see what I did there? But like the men that I know that are the most obsessed with sex are Christians, are Christian like thought leaders or whatever. Like the guys that I know now that are atheists or agnostic or whatever, like sure, they enjoy sex, but like obsessive about it? No. Like just it's like it's so weird when you think something is like really sacred and profound, and you like need it to be, you just can't like, yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'm rambling because it's just so much.
Yeah, there's just so many ways to react to all of this. Yeah, like I'm with you. Like I don't even know which I should go with first. Like it's like spiritual guilt coercion. Is what
absolutely. I mean, most of evangelical marriages are coercion. Like everything that's going on is coercive because like I think, and I could be wrong, I know that most women aren't as loud and outspoken as I am, but I think most women, something doesn't sit right when you're like, I have to submit to this guy who like I'm like he's clearly wrong, right? And I'm not saying that's like in every situation, but that's what they bring it up is like, oh well, if your husband's wrong, like you still need to submit to him. And you know, pray for him and let God do his work. Like, no, but that guy's fucking wrong. Like, I'm not gonna like. Sorry.
No, and it teaches manipulation, right? I mean, that's what you're doing because that's your only tool. Then you're not allowed to directly say, "I disagree with you. Let's have an adult fucking conversation." And instead, it's if you're sweet enough, if you're obedient enough, if you do all these things, then you can manipulate him into giving you what you need. And it creates such a toxic system.
And imagine not resenting someone after a while when like you are constantly holding your tongue or like, yeah.
I mean, when you're told your salvation depends on it.
Everybody's so creative. Sorry.
Yeah.
This one was for you, Dr. Fry. The Bible is less prudish than we are, using more graphic language to describe what happens in the honeymoon phase. The Hebrew language is onto something. No, really? No. The original language it was written on has maybe a little nugget of something that we don't have in English. Like,
this is when he brings up the phrase "vayapol elecha," and let's just talk about that phrase for a second. That's the phrase he went into her. And great. I'm glad that you did a simple word search in your seminary, because that's all I had to do is pull up my accordance. That's what I have. Maybe he has logos. and highlight the phrase, press a button, and wow, look at how many phrases there are, and it's repeated, and it's constant sex. Congratulations, you know how to use software. However, he doesn't like take the time to actually look at the verses that these are happening in. And so maybe the phrase is most commonly used to describe sex. Multiple problems with that. One, okay, so it's the most common phrase to describe sex in the ancient Near East, in a patriarchal society. Okay. So yeah, it's going to be male focused. If you wanted to just say we want to copy and paste that culture onto what we're doing here, just be explicit. Okay. Secondly, this phrase doesn't distinguish between good sex and bad sex. Mm-hmm. It doesn't distinguish between good sex, bad sex, or rape. Okay. So not only do we have, not but a couple of chapters later, we have Hagar, where the phrase is used. But also, as he, later in this chapter that I don't know if anybody still has access to, later in this chapter, he will denigrate sex workers. But what about the time that was not on the TGC post? It was in the actual chapter, but he will denigrate sex workers as this is not hospitable because you're charging.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's
a perversion. It's a perversion. But what about Judah and Tamar in Genesis 38? Like, that's not you are citing Genesis 29. That's not but a couple chapters later. What about Judah and Tamar?
Yeah.
Tamar it's like, why are you having to make your body like you're treating your body like it's a house?
And so,
sorry, I think there's a delay.
Sorry.
Oh no, you're good. And so what I'm concerned with is like, sure, is that the phrase that mainly is used? Great. Yes, there are other phrases. There are actual terms that we speculate could mean rape. There are to know, to yada. But
very nice.
Not distinguishing between the kinds of sex that are occurring is, of course, that wouldn't go along with his story, right? The point that he's trying to make is that this is a male thing, which congratulations, you made your point.
It's a bad point, but you made
not
it.
Good. Like, congratulations, you clicked the few buttons on accordance that got the results you were looking for. But none of this is good. This is not, you've continued to make your point that this is all about the male. And so I'm kind of over people using Hebrew words and phrases to dictate their current lives. Let's stop. Let's stop doing that.
But then they won't be able to force their wives into having sex with them.
I know.
They might actually have to be good at things. They might have to be likable.
They might have to be likable.
Yeah.
They might have to try. They might have to try.
Have to do the dishes, They don't want to do dishes. Fuck that.
What is foreplay? I don't know. It's only penetration. Okay.
Yeah.
Only penetration.
So I've said this before, and this is not in relation directly to this article, but I've had men on TikTok quite literally leave comments on videos where I've talked about purity culture or sex or whatever, and say like foreplay is boring. My guys, I have some news for you.
That means you suck at it.
Yeah, or maybe you like men. I don't know. Like, I'm just saying, if there's a woman who doesn't have any clothes that you're allegedly attracted to, and there's a way to spend more time with that woman with no clothes, no, I want to touch you for as little time as possible at a great distance. Like, I have some news for you.
All right, so I have a question. Okay. When you got to the hospitable part of this, right? Did anybody else think of Mark Driscoll from Mars Hill and his famous
Penis home?
homes. Yes, because that's all I can think now. For anybody who doesn't know,
I forgot about that. Holy shit!
Mark Driscoll was the former pastor of Mars Hill, was ousted, and now has a new church because that's how that works.
Because cancel culture.
Yeah. We always ruin people's lives.
Oh my gosh. I'm not doing totally fine.
But on an online forum, a Christian online forum, I think it was actually within even his own like church maybe, but he was caught referring to women as penis homes because that is how he defined their worth, right? They were made to be the home of their husband's penis. And
like a garage or something?
I think of when I read this.
Boner garage.
I mean, truly, the article is really just reducing women down to how, their worth is how they relate to men in the same way that humans are reduced down to, what they offer a God. I mean, it's the same thing, the direct connection there.
And it's never good enough.
Yeah, we are God's, our body is God's temple. And as humans, and then as women, apparently, our vagina is the home to the man's penis. It's the same thing. It's just reduced down to how you relate to that other being.
Like, my Holy of Holies is currently experiencing a fucking drought after reading this article. Like, Jesus, tap dancing Christ. It is
40 years in the desert for you, okay?
Yeah, like, literally, I never ever wanted, like, I read this and I was like, oh, I just became asexual. Like, because I can't ever.
Don't throw women out too.
Yeah, you know what? You're right.
Yeah, here it is. She gladly receives the warmth of his presence and accepts the sacrificial offering he bestows upon the altar within her most holy place. She welcomes him into the most vulnerable place of her being, lavishing herself upon him with extravagant hospitality. She receives his generous gift within her. His generous gift, you guys.
Yes,
I think that's really giving men a lot of credit.
Yeah, it's rarely as generous.
It's rarely generous. Sorry.
I think this is where a lot of women have even pointed out who may even still be a part of the church, but that metaphor in being used as like the Christ offering something upon the Holy of Holies, like my sex as a way to purify you. My sex is a way to make you more spiritual. There are actual accounts that people have been tweeting out since that similar language was employed in their own abuse. Need I say more? Church too is real. So
yeah, it's like the whole
horrific.
The whole narrative of getting pregnant. That getting pregnant, becoming a mother empowers you. No, the fuck it doesn't. I have a wife who's a mother. It's not super empowering.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be like for me, right? I don't want kids, so that would never be empowering. I don't care how many ways you
for
try
a woman
to
who decides that's empowering for her. Great,
right? Exactly.
Good. I don't want that to be where that comes from for me.
My friend read the article and said, what if it's not her sanctuary, but rather the coffee shop near the church entrance or the loading dock behind the church? What if I just leave the gift of my deepest presence on the lawn outside the church?
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Sorry.
Anyway, I love that.
I actually, so
should have been a tweet.
Comment in the chat, about
it was.
Oh, was it?
I'm sorry, Rachel. I tweeted the interaction.
I missed that one. Yeah. I'm gonna go make that my background. Anyway,
there's a comment in the chat about how a bunch of people endorsed it, endorsed the book, and are now printing retractions. And I honestly feel like, thank you. I honestly, I lose a little bit of respect for the people who are now like the fact that this guy was fired and the fact that, you know, they're now giving retractions, because this is pretty standard stuff. Like, yeah, he's a little bit more explicit, but they all agree with this. And even Timothy Keller, who, you know, was kind of the founder here with the Gospel Coalition, has wrote stuff along these lines. I mean, not anywhere as explicit, but still along these lines. I feel like they're being a little bit cowardly to not just like, you believe this, say you believe it, but instead they pretend like they don't.
1000%.
Yeah.
1000%. I think one of those people who endorsed it, I don't know if he has retracted it yet. His name is Brett McCracken. Hello, Brett. He also, you know, calls this book the magnum opus for Protestant sexual ethics in his endorsement. Brett was also the guy that a couple weeks ago, yes, this is not a joke. A couple weeks ago,
I mean, this is a joke, but like
it is. Brett a couple weeks ago decided that the film Women Talking, which, if you don't know the premise of the book Women Talking, which has now become a film, there is a Bolivian Mennonite county where mass rapes occur. And the premise is, what happens if the women decide, what do the women decide what to do? The whole book is laced with faith. Like, they end up leaving, but like they leave, but they're not leaving their faith, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's like this beautiful picture of like women still saying, this doesn't have to dictate my faith. I have other comments on that. However, Brett then decides to review this movie and calls Women Talking an alternate gospel because they leave,
women are speaking,
and it's liberating to the females.
Just say you want a slave, Brett.
Yeah.
Just say it.
It's
say it
an
with your whole chest.
alternate gospel.
Good. Let's do that then. Let's pick that one.
Yeah, that's a bit better.
I'm letting you have the alternate. I'm picking that one then.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, at what point, Brett, do you decide to take a step back and go, women are being abused by this language, by patriarchy writ large? Maybe I need to figure out where that's so deeply entwined with my own faith and get rid of that part. Keep your faith. That's fine. Get rid of that part.
Yeah.
I mean,
Magnum opus.
That would require him, like, potentially having to adjust his power and privilege, and we all know how that's gonna go.
We're not doing that, right?
Yeah.
Another thought on that: it's often in times of changing sexual norms that people decide that they want to, you know, we need a strong sexual ethic. This has been the stories specifically since the 1970s, right? Like, we've seen this happen before.
Sexual revolution,
with second wave feminism, et cetera, et cetera. And so, considering the fact that there are also articles on that site against drag, against LGBTQ persons, they are creating deviant behavior while applauding theirs. No, I haven't seen anything about the abuses happening in the SBC, even though many members of the SBC are part of the Gospel Coalition.
Yeah.
So you create this deviant bad guy narrative so you can distract from the fact that you have shit in your own house.
Yep.
I'm really tired over all of it. I'm just tired. Like, come on.
Yep.
The thing that struck me about this is we're seeing more and more like politicians on the Republican Party are saying they're turning saying the quiet part the loudest into an Olympic fucking sport, right? Calling for the genocide of trans people just yesterday at CPAC, right?
Oh God, yeah.
So then this came out and we're like, you're saying that this is the same shit we've heard for decades, however long. It's just a little bit louder and more obvious, right? This isn't new. It's just, but it shows like they know that they're losing their grasp on this facet of their privilege, so they're trying to like be like hyper correct.
It's like death throes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't just it dolls so much, you know.
I'm just happy they're gonna die soon. Like, die irrelevant faster, please. These fuckers are on their way out, and I can't wait.
They are, but the problem is all of the dead bodies they're leaving behind them. Dead bodies that didn't
Well, that's why I
deserve to
want to die quicker.
Right? Like, even, you know, part of this conversation too is purity culture, right? Dr. Katie Cross talks about how purity culture creates a body theodicy in women. So seeing our bodies as literally the problem and creating such a hatred for bodies, which, you know, we're all just nodding our heads because yes, we literally feel that in our bodies. Again, I'm just thinking through the literal, ironic saying this, body count on these people when it comes to the harm and damage they've done with their words. And once again, like you've said, Jessica, like, they don't care because it's about power for them.
Yeah.
And to concede that power would mean what they think is death, but that's not what's on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And it's a damn shame.
Yeah, it's well said.
Yeah. I mean, like growing up, I was actually just kind of chatting with a friend about this before. Like, I grew up in sort of like the height of the purity culture madness where everybody was getting like promise rings and signing things and reading all the books and like you heard about
a promise ring.
Me too.
I had one for like 2 days and I lost it.
I did.
So
okay, I went to a purity culture conference and they gave all of us like
me too
7-year-olds like these little pearls, like we were supposed to keep them. And of course I lost mine. I'm a 7-year-old who I don't care about this tiny little thing.
God
damn, I'm gonna go play volleyball. Weird. But now I'm shamed because I lost my most precious gift.
Oh my God.
No. All I can say is that when I actually lost my virginity, it was the most anticlimactic thing on the face of the planet. It was so boring. What I was going to say though, before we can talk about that, but like,
sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We growing up in that culture did exactly what you just described. And I was telling my friend earlier that like, I grew up thinking like I was just wildly unattractive, like this weird like thing of being a problem because men are just going to be attracted to me even if I'm like 7 years old and have my shoulder out. But also hating myself in a lot of ways and thinking I was just incredibly unattractive because if you start hating yourself and it's because of the body you're in, like that's a natural outgrowth of that.
Yeah.
And so like I felt this way about myself even after I left religion. And like when I don't just sound conceited, but like when I got on the internet and like got an audience and found out like that people actually thought I was attractive, like it was whiplash because I had spent so much of my life just thinking I was just horrible, right? Like just, and I think a lot more people, because I tweeted something about that the other day just to see sort of like where everybody else fell. And it seems like so many people felt the same way that like they felt just ugly. And like I don't think that gets talked about enough. I know that's not just something that happens because of purity culture, but it is definitely something that results from purity culture for women because like you're hyper focused on your body, on your looks, on covering it up, but then also being told that you need to be attractive so that men will want you. But then also when you're attractive, now you're the problem, making men sin. And it creates this very sort of confusing, frustrating narrative.
Yeah,
and it affects men and women.
All the time. It's such a hard line to walk because you have to be, if at any point you tempt a man into sin, if you're too sexual, that's on you. You did that. That was your sin. But at the same time, because of the gender politics around it and all of that, you also have to be hyper feminine all the time.
Yeah.
You have to be you have to be, as the doggers like to say, drawing attention to your countenance, right? So you need to be physically beautiful without being sexually
haven't heard that one.
luring people,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yep.
And
I mean, I don't know. I tend to draw attention here, so I guess this is.
But I have some theories about, I mean, I'm curious if you were also maybe an early developer, if you were maybe larger bust size than the girls around you, because that kind of stuff I think really impacted me growing up. Yeah. Where, you know, there was this idea that like just my body alone, right? Just my body alone was the problem as it was. And I couldn't disguise it enough because it was larger. It was, you know, more womanly than the girls around me or whatever else. And so that was on me. And there's a lot of shame on that.
Yeah. I mean, purity culture being the exact corollary to rape culture is like
same coin, different side.
So not only are we as evangelicals dealing with purity culture in the church, but we're also dealing with rape culture writ large. And so those two things compounded on top of each other, and your body is just the problem all the time. It doesn't matter if you have caused a man to sin in a way where you are actually doing a mutually consensual thing. But if something happens to you, it's your fault as well.
Yep.
Both in a sinful way, like I caused him to harm me, but also when it comes to rape culture, like who am I supposed to tell?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do here?
Yeah. I don't think like, and I could be wrong here, but I've also sort of talked about this on TikTok and on Twitter. I don't think a lot of men realize how young girls start being sexualized. Like I was sexualized before I knew what it meant. Same. Right? Like I didn't know what was happening. And I don't just mean like this is sexualizing when you say like, oh, she's going to be a heartbreaker or whatever, right? Like that's
I'm friends with a boy in kindergarten. Oh, is he your boyfriend?
Yeah. But like I got straight up like hit on by a fully adult man, like tried to ask me out when I was 10, 11. I had no idea what the fuck was happening. My mom had to like explain it to me. And that is not including like the sexual abuse that a lot of people are subjected to at a young age. Yep. That was just some random guy on the street, right? Like, but lots of people, myself included, have dealt with sexual abuse at a much younger age than that. And like, I'm not saying men don't know this, but men did seem really surprised by it when they were reading women's responses, because it was almost exclusively single digits or like very low double digits.
Well, it started, I mean, it starts young with our own mothers and our own, right? Like there's that.
I was born and my mom starts praying for my future spouse.
Yeah. But like I've witnessed.
Mine's going to need a lot of prayer. So that's fair.
While women told their daughters, their 2-3-year-old daughters to close your legs when a man walks in, right? That is, and they say it's out of protection. That's not protection. That's not protection because you know that man's not going to do anything to that girl right here. Even if you thought that there was something wrong, that man's not doing anything. That is you protecting the man from sinful thoughts. You're trying to protect him from sinful thoughts that you think are, you know, that's not you protecting your child. That's you sexualizing your child. And I mean, and growing up, I mean, I had a deacon's wife in our church call my parents to tell them, and I was a young teenager, 13, 14, right? Call them to say, the wife called to say, your daughter needs to not wear that outfit again. Yes. It was difficult for my husband. And it was something.
Sounds like your husband's a pedophile.
Yeah, like, right? And I got in trouble. My parents bought me those clothes. They watched me walk out of the house in those clothes. Right. And yet I got in trouble because it must have been how I was wearing those clothes. What did you do in those clothes in front of that man? Right? And no one thought, what the fuck is wrong with that man? But it starts.
It's just assumed. Like it's men should feel insulted. Like y'all really should feel insulted by the way that society and culture, and especially evangelicals, think about you, because they very much believe that like
given the option,
men will be attracted to anybody over the age of 7. Yes. Like, and sometimes not even that, right? And like it's it's gross. And they normalize it. So it's like, why are we, and I know why, but it's like, we're telling our daughters not to sexually attract grown fucking men instead of saying like, hey, men, if you're attracted to a 7-year-old girl, go to therapy.
Help.
Or like prison, whichever. No, hopefully not prison, but like
I was like, I'm an abolitionist, so
me too. Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
You need help. Okay.
Yeah. If it's like a little girl walking around with her like a sundress on is like doing something to you up here, like that is beyond problematic. I can't even look at the 18. I'm 33. If I see an 18-year-old guy, it's like a child to me.
It is a child.
Like a child to me.
Yeah. I mean, like, as a former teacher, like I don't even get it. Like they're children.
They're
like
kids.
I don't even
Can see beyond me.
They babies.
Yeah.
Even teaching undergrad, I'm like, y'all are kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like when my sisters bring their friends around, right? Like, I'm like, cool, those are kids. I don't know.
Yeah,
like, you're all kids.
You're baby.
Yeah. I don't even date a 25-year-old man. Like, I would never, ever. And like,
brain is fully developed, but I need you to spend some time with your developed brain before you come to me.
Yeah.
Like, it's just wild. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Kip says he has a friend who is uncomfortable about his wife wearing a bikini. Kip's wife. Why is he still your friend? Just kidding. Sorry.
Oh, missed that.
Yeah. Sorry, I just saw it. Like, yeah, it's weird. Like, I think because this is not an original thought to me, but I can't remember where I read it. You're talking about when you sort of constantly villainize something, or like when we're trying to make women and men like so pure, and we're like putting all these rules and regulations, it pathologizes it, like it turns it into like something that
it actually isn't.
Yeah, exactly. And like it's
ironic because if it doesn't make it any more true if you just keep repeating it, right? Like even complementarians who are like, you're equal, but you're distinct. That doesn't mean that you're not equal. I'm sorry, but that doesn't, just because you said that doesn't make it true. And so people keep repeating these things, like honestly, in a lot of religions, they keep repeating these things that aren't actually true in order to somehow train their brain to think that it's reality. But it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of I'm super offended by this. And what from the guy's perspective, like the way, because I grew up in purity culture too, but they told the guys, one,
so did the Jonas Brothers, okay?
One, they teach you to hyper valueize purity and a woman's virginity. Like that should be, you should find a virgin, and you should hit that after you get married. If you hit it before, it's okay, but at least she was a virgin still, but definitely wait till marriage. So that's something you have to unlearn. That virginity is a social construct. Yeah, there's a biological element to it, but who gives a fuck? How many women or how many other guys a woman has been with, it doesn't have anything to do with how she feels about you. That shit you have to like unlearn. And yeah, like I took my kids to the roller rink today for the first time. It was a fucking nightmare. 4 of them by myself, like picking them up and go back over here, pick you up. But there's like a box in the middle where the newbies go to kind of practice, and they have like these little old man walker type things. I hadn't been in like 15 or 20 years, so this was new to me. I remember those, but anyway, that's where I was, and like the little girl fell next to me, and I reached down and helped her up, and she was probably 4 or 5, and I was like, I hope their parents were okay with that. Like, a fucking course, the parents would be okay with me helping her up. What would the parents think? alternatively?
I mean,
yeah. There's a reason for that, sure, but
yeah, I mean, not that you would, but there's certainly
Yeah.
a reason that like parents would feel alarmed, and I think that speaks to the issue, the larger issue, where it's like we really live in a society in which a dad seeing a kid fall and helping them up would trigger this fear that maybe he was trying to like feel up your kid, right? And like the reason that we feel that way is for all the reasons that we're talking about, right? Because we've created this culture in which women are constantly and sexualized from birth, and we're normalizing this idea that it's okay. I mean, it's not okay, right? We don't want men to be attracted to young girls. However, we know that they're going to be. So we then tell them, like, how the fuck how are we doing that, right? Like, we don't want them to be, but we know that they're going to be. So we're just going to, tell our daughters how not to get raped effectively, or like how to cover up to protect themselves. When it's like, it doesn't matter what I'm wearing. You're going to, unless I'm wearing like a paper sack, right? Like you're going to be able to see that I have shape. Like yeah.
It's kind of another thing. Like, that they'll teach you what to be attracted to. And like, you're going to see girls and you're going to start liking the way they look, and you're going to want to look at them longer. And then you grow up and you're like, it's just a fucking woman with a body. She's showing her shoulders. Why the fuck? Why is she? Should she refrain from showing her shoulders because of what the fuck I'm going to think? Who cares what I think?
Yeah.
But still, you're going to put that responsibility on you.
Even that, right? Like they teach you what to be attracted to. I mean, I think that they don't realize that sexuality and sexual attraction is so incredibly fluid. And I mean, there's this idea that it is set in stone. And when they don't have a realistic view of how sexuality is created, they end up creating it.
Yes.
Without realizing they're doing that, right?
Yes.
Like you're covering things up. And so you're making fetishes. You're covering things up and you're creating these attractions. You are, they don't realize that they're causing those problems, because they don't even realize that those problems can be caused, because they don't realize that sexuality is fluid and that, all of that stuff can be created. So you end up, with these modesty standards, cover yourself from ankle to collarbone, and then they, then they suddenly have dudes who are like, cannot stop looking at that knee, cannot stop looking at that cleavage. Whereas if they just let them exist in the world like a lot of other non-Puritan countries are able to, with seeing nudity on a regular basis,
right,
in unsexualized ways, they have a much healthier view of sex, a much healthier view of bodies and of women and all of that. They're creating the problem.
Yeah, it is really wild to me how, like, I've had so many conversations after leaving the church and unpacking, like, a lot of this stuff, where it's like, there's nothing inherently sexual about a woman's body. There's not. And there's no value judgment that comes along with having sex, right? You can have good sex, you can have bad sex, but, like, the act of sex in and of itself is just a normal biological human function, right? And, like, we've attached so much morality and meaning to things. And it's like, if you like, why, it drives me insane. Because even like when you start unpacking relationships, right? Like, fine, some people are monogamous, some people aren't. But like trying to get people to stop assigning like a value to different relationships that structures, or just anything, that we have all of these like weird values that are only there because we've been told they're there. We've put them there. Our culture continues to put them there. But it's like, if you really are like, show me an actual reason why sex before marriage is bad, for instance, right? That isn't the Bible, and that's it. And like, you can't, like, because like, once you start realizing that like sexuality and attraction and sex and all of this stuff is natural and normal and doesn't actually come with any values or morals, your life gets a lot easier. Like, and a lot more enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can just focus on living your life in a way that doesn't hurt people.
Yes.
There you go. Just, make sure you're not doing damage out in the world. And other than that, who the fuck gives a shit?
I think what's interesting too, given your comments, Captain Dodpool, like we have created these narratives of stranger danger to hide from the fact that most abuse is actually happening inside the home. I just looked up the statistic. 85% of rapes are committed by someone the survivor knows and in some capacity trusts. 85%. And I know personally that statistic to be true in my own body.
Mine as well.
It's a damn shame that you couldn't feel like some of that tension and helping a child up off of the ground, because we have created a culture that goes, no, it's that person over there. It's the outsider. That's the problem. Instead of reckoning what's happening in nuclear families, right? What's happening in that family structure we prize so much? What's happening in those religions that we let shape all of our laws? Yeah, no, that's where the abuse is happening. But we have to create a bad guy that's somewhere over there to distract from the fact that things are happening in here that we are continuing to cover up. Which is really, really awful and damaging to the actual cause of, I mean, it's the constant, what was it a couple years ago, the protect children thing, like, how do we protect children from X? And it was like actually hurting organizations who are trying to protect children from abuse. I don't know what that is, but honestly, you could just copy and paste it and put it on the whole like drag show storytelling hours. Like, really, that's going to be the thing? That's the thing.
It's just creating something to be upset about that's not actually a problem, to distract from the actual problem. Like, right. Almost every woman I know, every woman I know has been sexually harassed. Many women I know have been sexually assaulted.
Yes.
And almost all the women I know that have been sexually assaulted, including myself, it was someone that I knew.
Yep.
And someone that I trusted.
Yep.
And it's not, yes, does random rape occur where someone breaks into your house?
Totally.
Yes. Did someone like attack you in the alley? Yeah, definitely. But like those things that we're led to believe are like the driving force or like the most common occurrences are actually statistical outliers.
Yes.
And you're much more likely to trust your friend and have him sexually assault you.
Yep.
Than you are to ever be walking down the street and have some random guy grab you.
Yep.
Yeah. I think that there's a desire to not believe that and not accept that narrative because
then our homes are unsafe.
Yes.
Then where is unsafe?
Control over it. If it's something else out there, you can tell yourself, I'm doing the stuff that's going to make it so that doesn't happen to me.
Yeah.
And that calms the fear, I think, right?
That's spot on.
And really, that's not it. That you're not doing the stuff that's going to save you because we're all equally at risk. But I think that that's the desire. I think women buy into that because they want to tell themselves that if they're doing the right thing, if they've kept themselves pure, if they're going to church, if they're not going out and doing slutty things, then that won't happen to them at night, right? With the stranger in the alley. But yeah, but is it going to be your grandpa who's the pastor?
Yep.
No, that's the scary stuff.
Unfortunately, more than likely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oof.
Super fun.
Yeah, this has been like
getting heavy in here.
Yeah, I'm like, this is the problem even with like, we come on and we're like, what the hell with this narrative? But this is fairly mundane from the spaces that we've come from. It's fairly normal. It's very normal, actually. And I think the more we talk about these mundane abuses, the better. Like, what he wrote, while they were horrific, right?
It's very much a standard lexicon of evangelical Christianity.
Yes. Yep. And it's known to be pretty normative, even beyond Christianity, but also in like very conservative right-wing homes that even don't identify with Christian nationalism or Christianity in general. This is just their view on what it is. And we need to be talking more about the mundane abuses. You know, I do all my work on Judges 19, where the unnamed concubine is gang raped and dismembered. Technically an outlier, right? Like, however, you know, was she dismembered potentially by her intimate spouse? Yeah, I'm going to go with yes. But we need to discuss the fact that rape culture is all over the text. Like...
And that's why they were so comfortable sharing this. You know, they vetted this and signed off on it. They read it because it didn't sound weird to them.
No,
they're used to this shit.
Yep,
they know exactly what it says. It doesn't raise any red flags to them because they're the ones perpetuating it. They're the ones benefiting from it. Yeah, it didn't stand out to them from anything else that they're used to. So when they started getting the backlash, they were like, "Oh, maybe the context is maybe you're taking it out of context. Let's post the whole thing." And then so they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, maybe we're a little bit sorry. We're gonna fire this guy."
Yeah, but even now, it's not. You know perfectly well that this is not they haven't had a change of heart about their theology.
No, they blame it all on this Josh guy.
Phrased that wrong. That was our mistake for our phrasing. We should have used slightly better phrasing because we knew we were talking to the women's and they needed something softer, but the theology was correct.
Right.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yep. So they create their apology, which is the thing that you can find on TGC when you look up the article now. It's an apology.
Yeah.
To which they do not address any harm that may have been caused to women. So is it an apology? No. But it's not an apology because they don't actually think they're wrong. Mm-hmm. So they put all the shit on the author, which he should be held accountable for his words, for sure. But and then they blame the fact that their processes of review were not rigorous enough. I don't think that's the case, buddy. Then you would need to look at a lot more of your articles.
Yeah, and both things are true. Probably not very rigorous, but also they believe everything in that article. And like, they like, I mean, come on. What is that worship song? Heaven meets earth, a sloppy wet kiss or something like. They are so goddamn horny all the time.
Which ironically kind of looks like him.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Like, oh God, like.
Jason Upton. You remember Jason Upton?
No, I don't think so.
His shit was weird. Oh my God. I went to a concert of his. And he would pretend like he was a little boy while he was praying and playing the piano and be like, "Daddy, come and catch me." And he would laugh. It was the fucking craziest. You're watching it.
No, can I find
as a Christian, you're watching and you're like, "Oh, he's our father. This is how we're supposed to see him."
Die.
God, but now looking back, and it's like, that was so
it's like when people would pray to like Daddy God and like
Daddy Jesus.
Oh my God. Every time I hear it, I cringe so hard. I become a husk of a person. I'm simply, I evaporate.
Would you say that? And it's ironic because later on in the chapter that they release the full thing of, he gives basically an apologia for these Jesus is my boyfriend songs. Because he's like, but he is.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
He's not.
I mean, I think we have to realize that every analogy is fucked up, right? I mean, the husband wife one has got some weirdness there.
I guess Jesus is my boyfriend in the same way. It doesn't exist.
Slave and owner, that's an awful one too. I mean, MacArthur got us on that one. I mean, ones. And now that we're deconstructing narcissistic parents, parent and child doesn't work either. So what are they left with, really, honestly?
Right.
Yeah.
His generative seed.
Oh my God. I feel like we all need to like say our favorite quote from this.
Oh, I'm I'm on it.
Oh.
He enters the sanctuary of his spouse where he pours out his deepest presence and bestows, offering a gift, a sign of pilgrimage.
I like this one. Lavishing herself upon him with extravagant hospitality.
She squirted. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I just want to add to what you just said,
He's making that shit
Jessica.
up.
I'm so sorry.
Mason Menega.
Yes. Oh my God.
He literally tagged TGC and put, if your wife squirts, is that like baptism?
Yep.
I love Mason. I love Mason. He's like, I said this the other day, but like he's like the other half of my like chaotic soul. Because
Absolutely,
it's like
yes.
I will say some wild shit, and the only person that matches me is Mason. I'm so glad he exists.
It's
Shout out
so
Mason.
bad.
He posted, where did I put that?
Of trampolines and icons. It's just going to be bad.
I know. It's all so bad.
Yes.
I'm looking.
Real quick. This, I had to screenshot this and send it in the group chat.
Oh my God, that was so funny.
Like
that guy's an idiot.
You wouldn't understand satire. It poured out. It poured out its very
yes.
Not only in time, but within. I was like, God damn it, Mason. Oof. Oh, that hurts. That hurts me.
I saw that and I like lost it. Like, if nothing else, I am glad that this absolute abomination of an article gave me that phrase that I can now use with abandon. I have a little thing that has the flag that says marked safe from having anyone's presence upon or within me.
Do?
Oh my God.
This was like evangelical niche comedy gold.
It was
like,
so
it's
good.
Terrible and like horrible, and it's awful. And there's like lots of things we need to talk about, but also like so many good jokes. Like,
yeah, every laugh heals the trauma just a little bit.
That's right. That's right. Oh man, that's so good.
Just rich.
Oh.
Yeah.
Dr. Fry, did you actually give your favorite quote? I didn't hear.
I'm looking. I'm working on it.
You probably have a list, don't you?
Yeah, I don't like to make decisions. So what's hard is, as soon as I read some of this, I was like, interesting. This reminds me of actually a Trinitarian theology that I was taught when I was in undergrad about the interpenetrative nature of Christ in the Trinity being interpenetrative. What I didn't realize is at the moment, this man was teaching us this, and I didn't realize how not only mutual, but also pleasurable and very queer the Trinity could be. And I'd prefer a conversation about that than what just occurred in this text, because I was like, oh, okay, I can get behind that. But
nice.
That was, yeah, thank you. So like, I think there is and are healthy ways of having conversations that do use metaphor to discuss sex and God. This ain't it, but anyway, just throwing that one out there too.
Yeah.
While you're trying to pick one,
does anybody else have one?
What the church is? What do you think the G spot? Well, the G spot location of G spot would depend on if the church is a boy or girl. Because if the church is a boy, then it's located.
Backdoor loading dock.
The church is a girl. I mean,
yeah,
right? It's very heteronormative. If
the church is a girl, but also being feminine, bad. No effeminate theology. No.
Well, if there are only men in the church, does that make it a trans woman?
Oh, that's a good question.
Maybe that's why men don't like to be called the church, and so they won't discuss them being a part of this because they don't want to be talked about being penetrated by Christ.
I cannot believe that this man had the audacity to reference Ben Gibbard and the Postal Service in the chapter of this book. How dare he sully Ben Gibbard's name like that. I'm sorry. That had nothing to do with what you just said, but I just saw it, and this man needs to go to prison.
Straight to jail, right away.
Do not pass go. Sorry, that's all.
Oh my God.
A husband's unprovoked desire is a sign of Christ's pre-existing affection for his bride. What does that even mean?
But it's just,
What does that even mean? Those are just some words. Yeah, like you having an
Oh my
unprovoked
God.
desire
Oh my
for your
God.
wife.
I found mine.
Jordan
You
Peterson.
realize this man must be so bad.
What you got, Dr. Ryan?
Dirty talk. Like he just cannot. I mean,
He's so bad at all of it. Let's be real.
All right, here we go.
Oh, man.
This is on page 12 of his chapter, and he's continuing to discuss hospitality. Hospitality, on the other hand, can turn inward to an unwelcoming posture, refusing to receive the other's presence, declining to prepare a space for them, shutting the door on intimacy, and locking the bolt behind you. Over time, the warmth from the honeymoon can become a churlish cold shoulder. Women are known for having a stronger tendency to struggle with this one. In parentheses,
Why would that be?
In parentheses, it's usually not the guy going, I have a headache.
They are the headache. That's why. Sorry.
We're the ones providing the headache.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my.
Oh my God. It's
Anytime my wife says, not tonight I have a headache, I go, I'm sorry.
It's just really her.
I must have missed something.
This is my
But
fault.
it's also like it just really points, and we all know this, but it really points to this like idea that we see at the culture at large, but also like in the church, of men just like not needing to like be full partners. Like we think it's like a gift when they do the dishes or something, right? Like, bitch, you live here, so like I don't know what to tell you. You use those dishes too, right? Like, and like. Or like when you dad is watching the kids, they call it like babysitting. Like those are your children.
And it's like crazy.
Yeah, like women
God.
don't want an additional child. They want a partner. And when they have to ask you to do everything that are just like normal human tasks, like, yeah, of course they're gonna like be frustrated and lose interest because they're exhausted and they have to keep track of everything. And then they have to remember to ask you to do the things that they want you to do instead of like these men just seeing something and doing it. And then it becomes like transactional, like, oh, I want to have sex with my wife, so I'm gonna like surprise do the dishes. Like,
yeah.
Sorry, I just
yeah.
It's the second shift, right?
That's
yes.
Oh. Oh, that was a good one. That was a good quote.
Yeah, I mean, good. It was powerful to share, but it was sucky.
That was a lot.
Refusing to receive the other's presence, declining to prepare a space for him, shutting the door on intimacy, and locking the bowl behind you. Over time, the warmth from the honeymoon can become a churlish cold shoulder. Yeah. Dude, just say you suck at fucking. Just say it.
You know, people got so mad at me because I put that picture up of him on Twitter, and I was like, "This guy has never fucked." And then, like, people were like, "We should be having intelligent discourse around like the problems of the article, not making fun of this man." I was like, "I don't know about you guys, but I'm gonna make fun of him. Like, you guys can have intelligent conversations. This guy thinks I'm less than human. Fuck him." And not in the fun way.
Sometimes that's all shit like this deserves is just vicious mockery, like Nat 20. Roll on vicious mockery. But that's
like, sorry, you chose that profile picture, so like, you saw that and were like, "That's the one."
Well,
did you hear like that?
How you can tell a woman doesn't love him because a woman would have shown him how to take a better one. I mean,
and she's like, "Yeah, I don't give a fuck. Put it up."
She would have given
like,
him a filter. She would have been like, "I got your back," but
she would have given him a haircut, probably.
I do resent that he quotes Dr. Emily Nagoski.
Me too.
Who I love, but then like doesn't actually do much of anything with it.
He takes this little piece. So that book that he's quoting, "Come as You Are," is excellent.
Excellent. Gold.
Like, everyone should read it.
Yes.
But like she does talk about how women's sort of sexual, I guess, response or sexuality tends to be contextual, which like we were just talking about, right?
1000%.
Which, yes, very much. Like men might be more like men can get turned on. Not all men.
Why do I
but, like,
have
randomly,
the headache?
Right, exactly. Why do I have the headache? And it's not for a lot of women something that like, oh well, I got turned on, therefore like I forget all the rest of this stuff, right? Like it doesn't work that way. And so like he brings it up, and that's true, but then he just like leaves it there without discussing any of the stuff that she does in her book, and without providing like any real like exploration. Like it's just intellectually so lazy, and he's like appealing to this woman who's actually an authority and out in the secular world to lend some credence to his shit ass argument, but like does nothing with it.
Yeah,
sorry.
It's like the essays I get from an 11th grader that just needed to put 3 sources in.
Yeah.
And then they just found the quote and they put it in, and they have no idea what this what the actual article is.
He's trying to stay. He's like trying to be relevant. He's like, ooh, Postal Service. Ooh, Emily Nagoski. Ooh, like your argument's still trash. Like
he's like, foreplay, good. But again, I'm not even going to want to get to foreplay if you haven't dealt with my headache.
Yeah, like don't touch me. Don't even look at me.
The headache's not real. It's just an excuse. It's just an excuse to not be hospitable.
Yep, I'm just an inhospitable meat pocket.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Your job is to bring penis home, and you didn't make that home all nice.
No.
Yeah, the garage door is broken. So I'm sorry, you have to park your car on the street. Your penis mobile. Like,
Oh.
God, men.
Men.
They're the worst.
Not all men. Hashtag not all men.
It drives me crazy too. Like, no, not all men, but
definitely
most, but by a pretty huge majority.
I mean, but at least
men.
him. For him. For
Definitely
sure.
him. Yeah. I like, sorry, not to get like super nerdy, but like that shit drives me especially insane because it's like we speak English. English is a heavily idiomatic language, right? Like we rely on these verbal, like rhetorical devices as shortcuts. Everybody does it. We do it all day. We do it in a variety of ways. And then someone's fifis get hurt because they think they might have to examine their own thoughts, actions, past actions. And then they're like, well, let's shift the focus of this conversation to like how you didn't say it just right. And I don't like that. I don't really care. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't like you. So here we are. Sorry.
All right. Where do we go from here?
I don't know.
Oh boy.
I
have
a headache. So
well, we have to deal with that before anything else can happen.
This is correct. Thank you,
are.
Rachel.
Imagine just like liking women. Like, can you imagine? Like, it's wild to me how much cishet straight men seem to really not like women.
Oh my gosh.
Like, it's fine if you don't like women. Like, this is 2023. Like, we will welcome you into the community. Yes. But like, y'all really just don't seem to be attracted to or like women. And it's weird because the guys that do, they get hella action. Like, they are not lacking for like female attention, right? Like, just unbelievable. Okay.
Yeah.
No,
it's one of the insane experiences of my life was attending a lesbian festival, and literally it just being lesbians there, and lesbians and their children. So and what was so powerful about it was being in a space where every single person there was attracted to the gender that was there, and yet it didn't feel sexualized. Like, you didn't feel sexualized at all.
Interesting.
I mean, we were in the middle of the woods, and there's like bands of young girls who are like running through, and half the time they're topless and they're whatever, and nobody is thinking like, oh my God, they need to cover up, or oh my God, they're in so much danger here. It's just they're just allowed to exist in their girlhood and be safe. And the same thing with the women there, like you're allowed to just exist in your womanhood, and you can even be admired for being beautiful without it being creepy sexualization at the same time. And it's just feeling like you are loved, like you are just fully seen as a full person and appreciated for that. It was like experiencing it and then realizing like, oh, I am permanently sad that I don't ever experience this in real life. I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't
That's deviant.
feel this way. And now I know it exists, and now I am sad. I am deeply sad that this is not my reality.
Yeah. I mean, I only really realized recently, like pretty recently, that I am constantly trying to make sure that like I'm not too much for men, because in my mind and in my experience, there's no way that any of them will ever welcome or appreciate or value my entire personhood. And so like if I'm too direct or too outspoken, or I've had people get mad because I'm funnier than them, like or I'm too this or too that or too whatever, like, so I have to constantly, I don't have to, but I realize that I've almost always constantly trying to make myself into something that like I think will be like digestible, or like, you know, I think I described it as like parceling myself out in little pieces or small doses so
you
that
can be consumed appropriately, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. Yeah.
It's about
a really
their
interesting
consumption
thing
of us.
Yep. Because what am I going to do if a man doesn't like me? I don't know. Same thing I do every day, probably. But
never have a headache again.
Never have a headache again. Yeah. and when I do find a guy who doesn't like, even just as a friend, right? Who doesn't like who clearly doesn't have any problem with the way I am in any capacity. It's like I don't believe it. I'm like waiting for this other thing to happen, because it's like it's just inconceivable to me, based on my life experience, that like a man would ever value me as an entire person, and like as a, and not only that, but like really like it, not just like tolerate it so he can like get what he wants from the parts of me that he likes, right? And it's fucking sad, because I know a lot of women that feel that way. And it's just, yeah.
It's like you can't fucking do anything. Like on the, you highlight this the best, Jess. Like you just post a video of you working out, and then guys show up in droves and tell you your form is wrong.
Yeah, I'm like, cool guy. I literally trained with Team USA weightlifting coach. Like, I'm good. You fucking cracked open a Sports Illustrated on the toilet once. Like, mind your own goddamn business. It's the same guys that like read one Wall Street Journal article and they're like challenging me in like economics. Like, yeah,
I read it. I'm like, she will never pick you. Shut up.
Yeah,
she will never pick you.
Fucking wrong.
Why are you saying anything?
And these are the same guys that like get upset when other men are like, just fuck off, like leave her alone. And they're like, oh, like, she's never gonna pick you. Like, I'll tell you what, buddy, I'm way more likely to pick that guy than I am to some guy who I've never met coming on my post telling me that like I'm not doing something that I'm quite literally professional at. Like, get fucked. But that's, sorry, that's my rant. It's mind-boggling. But it happens to women all the time in every arena. Like, women can't do anything anywhere without some man. Like, women's existence is not an invitation for men to give us advice. We don't need help. If we do, we'll ask. But it's like this weird infantilization of women where like so many men think that just by virtue of us existing, we need them to help us because we're incompetent of doing anything on our own, and especially not better than them. Like, I understand that you live off of boiled chicken and creatine, but like, no gracias. I'm fine. Thank you so much. Anyway, sorry.
And that's learned behavior too, though.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Like they're saying shit like that because they think that's what they're supposed to do. That's how they've been taught to communicate to women.
Yep, we're
by
kids,
somebody, probably the church.
Just if the boy is bullying you, he has a crush on you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
Yes. I just, it's.
I mean, going back to purity culture, they always tell you don't be alone in the room with a girl. You might sin, you might do something like
Billy Graham rule.
The church teaches you to immediately have this fear in the back of your mind every time you see a woman. Let me make sure I don't ever end up alone in a room. And then you grow up a little bit and you step into reality and you realize, hey, I can be in a room with this girl and not sexualize her? Really?
People
what a
have
novel fucking concept that the church does not teach you. The church doesn't teach you that. They teach you just the opposite.
Have their minds blown when I tell them that I have slept in many a bed with a friend that's a male and nothing happened. It was perfectly fine. There was one bed. We both needed to sleep. We've slept. Like, it's inconceivable to people that a man and a woman can be next to each other on a bed and not like be sexual. It blows their mind even more when I say that, like, I have cuddled with a guy friend before, wasn't sexual. Like, people cannot wrap their brains around relationships that aren't like built around or like focused on or whatever, hinge on sex. Like, it's just so wild. Like,
it's a binary for them, right? It's easier to consume if you put it in a binary of it's either this or it's that. Yeah. Never in between.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the reason is because they put sex up on a fucking pedestal.
Oh yeah,
like that fucking weird ass. It's this holy sacred thing you have to do right, and it leads you to the spiritual realm. No, it fucking doesn't. It's sex. We're fucking animals.
Yep.
Fucking other animals. That's what sex is.
Yep.
Get over it. It's not that deep.
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of evangelicals who were like, the first time I had sex, when I was done, I was like, that's what I've been like avoiding.
Oh yeah, like, they absolutely create problems later for people because they make it this a magical thing, this spiritual magical thing, and then what? The first time when you're just like, oh, okay, well, didn't.
Or you say it's such a sin
that
you say it's such a sin. I've had multiple friends in my own circles where you say it's such a sin that a man can't even get it up when it comes time to perform these acts because he's so concerned with doing the right thing, even though they've signed the papers. They're married.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I didn't get that.
Oh, Siri.
Yeah. But also, like, the sexual compatibility that it built, incompatibility, or the potential for that anyway. Like, how the hell... Sorry, you're going to marry someone allegedly for life here, and like you're not going to know if you're sexually compatible with them. Like, that sounds like a nightmare. Yeah, and like God is not going to intervene.
Yeah,
I'm sure you'll have to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because sexual chemistry is absolutely a thing, mainly because guys don't know what the fuck they're doing, but.
Well, I mean, how would you? Nobody knows. Nobody knows until you start doing it.
No.
And then you talk to each other and you learn and like you realize that you work better with some people than others. Like,
it is a very unsexy thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
It really is.
But it doesn't even concern, it makes sense that it wouldn't even concern them because women aren't a full participant. They're just the home.
Yep.
They're the penis home. And it's not that there are two roommates who need to make this work. It's that one is an object and the other is acting on her. So there's nothing you have to worry about.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Wherever you hang your foreskin is where your home is, I guess. I don't know. Like it does.
Yeah, sex is something that men do to women, not that men do with women.
Yeah.
That's effectively what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Not when I'm in charge. No, sorry. Sometimes then it happens to men. Sorry. I can't, I only have jokes. I'm so sorry. I can't help myself.
I mean, they set us up for it, so.
We're gonna go.
I mean, I was looking at the Gospel Coalition's website under their, sex topic because I hate myself. And obviously that was the first one up there, but then the second one right after was is self-gratification glorifying to God? And so I sent it to my friend because of course I did. And I was like, well, sounds like I don't glorify God a lot. But what in the world possesses someone to be like, oh no, what I said to him was, I guess you shouldn't let your right hand see what your left hand is doing. Sorry, but like, what possesses someone to be like, God is jacking off? Does God like that? Like, Jesus Christ, just go.
Explicitly told that as part of purity culture.
I know.
Not even a hint. Especially the book I received.
Yeah. Like, you're definitely, if you're a guy, you're probably going to fuck it up and you're going to do it anyway. But a woman, if you even considered
you're a monster.
Gratification,
you're a monster.
It wasn't even literally, that wasn't even acknowledged as a possibility. What would women do? She's just the inanimate home. I don't understand.
Women's pleasure? Women's pleasure is an oxymoron.
Yeah, it wasn't even registered as a thing.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I remember even as I got older and like I left and like people were more comfortable talking about sex and sexuality and all that stuff. Like, I remember being like wildly uncomfortable when someone I was like dating asked me about that. And like, it was an appropriate thing. Like, we had been dating and whatever, but like asked about my sort of like personal whatever. And I was like, I don't want to, like, me? Never. Like, because it's like, you're just taught that like it's so taboo and it's literally not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. And part of it is, I mean, it's the puritanical, view of a suspicion of anything that brings you joy or pleasure.
Yeah.
Right. And I think what's interesting too is people who have deconstructed, sometimes if you don't fully, like, you don't realize how much you have to deconstruct, because you can deconstruct the sexual part of that. But if you haven't deconstructed that very American puritanical suspicion of pleasure, then you can very easily go into demonizing other things along the same lines. Like, and then you get liberals who are saying, like, my purity is my food. Whatever enters my body needs to be organic, and it needs to be this, and it needs to be that, and it needs to make sure that everything that comes into my body is super pure, as though it's the same.
Who they're sleeping with, so
right. It's the same concept behind sex. So it just no, you're just an animal. It's just a body process. It's just a whatever. There's nothing holy about it. That's orthorexia. Like, let's just throw that out. And I think we have to remember that pleasure is fucking okay. You can eat the goddamn M&Ms. You can have the sex.
You listen to her girls
if you're not hurting others. Yeah.
You mentioned M&Ms. Had to say it.
Oh God.
Liberal M&Ms, you mean?
The one with the boots? Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking about this the other day, is that like you can leave religion without leaving fundamentalism. And I think we see that show up in so many ways, because
I think that was the challenging part of even some of the responses to this article that I was seeing from evangelical people. Like, no, this isn't it. This isn't it. This is what it is. And I just want, like, you're using the same book to tell
like
different stories, but it's now they're bad, and it's all the same shit.
Yeah.
When are we religion or sorry, go ahead.
Author go, why is it confusing, guys?
I think evangelicalism is like, it has to be this like black and white, this binary, right, of like one or the other. And I think when you don't realize the sort of methodological ways that they use to force you to see the world in this way, us versus them, the like everything that's not for God is against God. If something is, against the Bible or whatever, like it's demonic. And then you learn that just sort of, it's a way of thinking, and it starts to take over everything in your life, right? And you see in the purity culture, like, not even a hint, right? What is that? That's just another way of saying this or that, bad or good. And so you can easily leave religion, and you see it in the atheist community a lot, leave religion and you're still a raging bigot.
Yeah.
Because you have it like
Pine Creek, excuse me. Hope that didn't sound like words just then.
Yeah, that guy sucks ass. And not in the good way. So Yeah, and so you see, like, you know, these people that, like, they hate trans people and they hate the LGBTQ community and they, like, still view women as less than. And it's like, you just really didn't undo anything. You just stopped believing in God.
Yeah.
So, like,
yeah, you have to keep going. You have to say, what else was I wrong about?
Yep.
I was wrong about this. Surely I was wrong about other things too.
Yeah, you stopped your deconstruction at where it helped you, and then you didn't continue on with how is it hurting others.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. That should be a tweet. Just saying.
That should be a tweet. Theme tonight, that should be a tweet. Yeah.
Jesus fuck. All right. We're over an hour and a half. How are y'all holding up?
I'm exhausted.
No. I can make jokes like this all night, so we're good. Yeah, no.
Yeah, we'll go to wrap things up there. I've had a long day. I'm getting very tired. But appreciate y'all coming on and talking about this. This was a lot of fun. I was looking forward to it, and I did not disappoint. Yeah, fuck shit like this. In summation, this isn't just not it. This is the hurtful shit that we grew up with, that planted toxic ideology into our brain that were very hard for us to undo ourselves.
I'm still untangling it.
Yeah.
Yes, all the time.
That's why we had such a visceral reaction to this.
Yeah.
Because we know we've been through this. This is Tuesday.
Yeah.
But it's just a little more Tuesday than other Tuesdays, I guess. I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah.
It's also fun to talk about things like this that help us understand why we had such a visceral reaction. I almost have. I look like my head is on Dr. Fry's body. Trying to.
Sorry, I was trying to add
We're wearing the same shirt. It was helpful.
That's good.
All right. Well, thanks again, guys. I'll let y'all go. Thank everybody in the chat for watching. Hopefully this was valuable to you. Sorry if I was ignoring a lot of shenanigans that were happening in the chat. I was listening intently at the conversation. What do I got coming up? I got Dr. Jennifer Bird is coming on the 19th. And we're going to talk about some of the issues that women face in scholarship.
Oh, Lord.
Talk about the Dr. Falk, Dr. Francesca Stravac-Pulu thing. We're going to get into all that. And then I got Brady Goodwin from Fanatic is coming on.
Oh, cool.
Shit, I'll have to check. I didn't write it on my calendar. 26, I think. And then got Bart Ehrman coming on the 2nd with Dave Warnock.
Hey, yeah.
Did you tell Dave?
Yeah, he's very excited. He's got a story in his book where he when he was starting to question things, he went to the library and he bought a book by Bart Ehrman, and the librarian was like, "You shouldn't read that. He's an evil atheist."
Bart Ehrman's like the nicest, most balanced guy on the planet.
Right?
Like,
so I'm going to bring that up on the show.
That's funny.
God damn.
Who I send all the baby the baby skeptics to, right? Like, okay,
Yeah,
you're not,
he'll take it
not
really
ready
easy.
for the real, heretical speech. This will lead you in gently.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
God. Yeah.
All
right.
Oh. Cat's out of the bag now, Correa. Yes, we'll be sharing the stage. Well, not at the same time, but we should probably start writing our speeches, huh?
Yeah, I should get them.
All right. Thanks again, guys. Thanks again in the chat. See y'all next week. Y'all go have a good day or night because it's nighttime. I'm bad at this. Bye.